So, you hit 21 and everyone acts like the world opens up for you. It doesn't. You just start paying for things that were already broken, like healthcare, the job market, even politics are beyond repair. And sure, we are given an open door to life, but they hand us a burning planet and said good luck, a broken economy and said grind harder, a fractured culture and said stay positive. You get welcomed into adulthood with student debt, rising rent, and collapsing trust, and a vague promise that if you hustle hard enough, you might survive this week. And that's what we call the dream. We're not lost, we're just exhausted. Not lazy, just navigating a world where everything costs more, delivers less, and tells you it's your fault when it breaks. However though, we are adults now. We don't get to choose the world we were handed, but we do get to choose what we pass on. You ever notice how everyone keeps saying things like change starts with you, but never mentions that you probably won't see the change? We live in a world built on results. If it doesn't go viral, if it doesn't make money, if it doesn't fix itself in a year, it's called a failure. But belief doesn't work like that. Belief is not an outcome, it's a decision, a discipline, a promise you make knowing you may never live long enough to see it kept. We grew up in a time where the most honest thing you could say was, I don't trust any of this. And you were right to feel that way. But distrust isn't a home. It's not a belief. It's a shelter you outgrow if you want to live like a human being again. Nietzsche said that when God died, the world would fall into confusion, not because God kept people good, but because God gave people a structure. So when that structure dies, what happens? You either become a cynic or you start building your own meaning, not out of illusion, but out of action. Not loud action, not grand gestures. I'm talking about the quiet kind. Saying I love you first, admitting when you're wrong, showing up when you're tired, giving a damn when it's easier not to. A 2022 APA study showed that people who acted according to internal values rather than external rewards report higher emotional stability and lower existential anxiety. And a long-term sociology project found that values passed on from parents to children like kindness, integrity, and resilience last longer than wealth or education. So maybe the belief you build isn't for you at all. Maybe it's for someone who hasn't even been born yet, and your job is to leave it behind like a seed in the ground. You don't get to see the tree, but you still plant it. You don't get the applause, you get peace. You don't get to watch the world change. You just make sure it doesn't stay the same. You don't need to fix the system. You can't fix the system. You just need to refuse to become a part of the rot. You need to find a way to say, I was here, and I tried, and I meant it. The fire doesn't die with us, because belief is not a flame in your hand. It's the warmth you pass on to someone else before the cold sets in. I always had a dream about being famous, being rich. I want to leave my mark on this planet. But you want to know the truth? Most of us will be forgotten. And that's not a failure, that's freedom. You don't have to remember. You just have to matter, now, to someone, in some way, to live your life in such a way that someone else's life becomes lighter. That's legacy. You may never see the promised land. You might not even get close, and still, you walk toward it, like Moses, standing on the edge, seeing it, naming it, pointing the way, knowing it's not for him. That's not tragedy. That's what leaders do. That's what adults do. You were hurt, but you didn't let it harden you. You were poor, but you didn't teach your kids to worship wealth. You were ignored, but you still listened. That's legacy. That's you deciding the damage stops here. You can't heal the world, but you can stop one person from bleeding. And legacy is backed up by science too. A Harvard center found that children who witness adult models' resilience and emotional honesty are significantly more likely to break cycles of generational trauma. I'm sorry if that sounded weird. That was 5 takes of my speech impediment and my dyslexia. And in 2023, study from an APA, adults who live with a future-facing purpose even if they never reach their goal, reported lower levels of depression and higher life satisfaction than those chasing instant gratification. Legacy isn't what you get, it's what you give and let go of. The tree doesn't get to see its own fruit, but it still grows because something will eat it, something will rest in its shade, something will live. And if you're tired of hearing you can change the world, good, you don't have to. You just have to leave it a little less cruel than how you found it. You just have to mean something to someone on a day they need it. That's your legacy. The world may not remember your name, but the person you love deeply, the child you raised gently, the truth you spoke quietly, they will. And if they pass that forward, you did your part. And now, let me be honest. What if nothing changes? What if we give everything, our time, our honesty, our healing, and the world still burns? What if your kindness never spreads? What if your legacy fades? What if the cycle just keeps cycling? These are real fears, and you wouldn't be human if you didn't think about them. Here's why it might never work. Because people forget, because systems are bigger than intentions, because comfort is easier than truth, because good people die with their stories untold, because history has buried millions of voices who tried. And the silver lining, the answer is, you don't do this because it guarantees success. You do it because not doing it guarantees failure. For my closing thoughts, every person who chooses honesty over ego, compassion over cruelty, discipline over chaos, they build the road for someone else who will walk it. And no, you might not get to see where it leads. You might not get recognition, credit, or closure. But that's never what it's about. You live in a broken world and still refuse to become a part of what broke it. You carried something good through the fire and you didn't let it die in your hands. That's what matters. Find something to believe in. Find it for yourself. And when you do, pass it on.